Testing. Testing. Yeah, that one works. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Code Remix Weekly. We're your usual hosts, Sam and Tim. I'm calling in from my house after a vacation to Australia for 2 weeks, and Tim is calling in from a formless void. Where are you at, Tim?
I'm in Stockholm in a windowless room, but no sense in having rooms in the evening here anyway with a view because everything is dark outside. So pretty
Right.
good.
You're in Stockholm for a conference, I imagine?
I was planning to, but I'm now just visiting some friends of ours of the company and
Oh,
making a
that's
short
nice.
trip out of it. Yeah,
Nice. Very fun.
yeah. So no, pretty good. And then yeah, I hope you had a very good holiday. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Went to Australia, Melbourne or Melbourne, despite an unnamed airline's best attempts to thwart me from getting there. We did sadly miss a scheduled boat tour to see wild penguins, which would have been cool, but we did at least later
mhm.
get to see the same species of penguin at the Sydney Zoo, which is excellent, and also to stop by Tasmania on the way, which
Oh,
is
nice.
a really cool place. Nice cool temperatures too, despite it being obviously summer in Australia now.
Hmm.
And where we saw a wild platypus, which is really cool. They're smaller than I thought they were. I'd always pictured something like beaver sized, and they're closer to like a squirrel or a small cat than that.
Okay.
But it was really neat to see the little guy swimming upstream, and also saw a couple of echidnas, which are really cute little spiky anteater kind
Yeah.
of guys, as well as a whole variety of other things. So it was a good trip for spotting the native wildlife.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Glad to hear you enjoyed that. That's,
Yeah,
and yeah, and good to have you back as well, of
thanks,
course.
Tim.
That's, yeah, so yeah, we'll take you all through a bit of the usual updates for the past 2 weeks, I believe. I guess we were off for Thanksgiving, and for that, I'm gonna take you through a couple quick tabs. So the first thing is that we just did a webinar with some friends of ours from Uber. So if you missed it live, then you can watch the recording. Just go to our LinkedIn event. You should be able to find it there. It was a lot of fun talking about how they're leveraging Open Rewrite and complementing that with AI to make very large changes. In this case, we talked about their upgrades to newer Java versions and JUnit versions and all of that, whilst getting 1,000 commits a day also trickling in. So very interesting to see that kind of scale and the challenges that brings. So if you're interested in that, be sure to catch the recording there. Now we also did a couple new blogs whilst folks were having turkey and other celebrations. One of them here is on using Modern and Entropic, and specifically how we created a skill that helps tools like Claude better develop new recipes. Some of the validations there. If you're interested in that, go to modern.ai/blog, and you should be able to catch that as well. Now, we also did a blog catching up, folks, with our progress towards JavaScript and TypeScript support. So there's we got some very helpful feedback from someone on the direction that we've taken with this support here. And as part of a conversation there, we just turned it into a blog. So everyone is now fully caught up on our current status, our current plans. And of course, that will fold into the next releases that we do. The next one planned tomorrow, sort of. And one of the things that should make it into the release tomorrow is just one feature I wanted to highlight, which is improved matching capabilities for your XML recipes. And we found this to be very helpful in various ways, but also we were somewhat limited by our implementation, having been a bit bespoke And now we have one that more closely follows the specification for expand expressions, such that you can match more selectively, and from there have recipes, maybe update your annotation processors as you need for going to Java 25 and things like that, just to make things a bit more helpful there. So that's going to be in there. In our unofficial release schedule, which is every 2 weeks, unless Tim is out, and I'll be back home tomorrow, so we'll do a new release. Also, tomorrow we're going to do a new edition of the live trainings that we do every month. So there'll be an introduction training in my evenings, and so that's aimed towards the US time zone there, or folks in Europe planning to stay late and learn about Open Rewrite recipe development. So if you want to join still, just sign up, go to Moderna AI, and under resources, you will find these trainings and be able to register. And then we hope, of course, to see you all there. We'll also do a very special edition next month, where we're going to help folks move on to Spring Boot 4, of course. So, of course, we have DaShaun with us today, so we'll bring him on shortly. But this is just a special case where we think, well, there's a lot of interest here, and we want to get folks off on the right footing to move their own applications there as well. So you can reserve your spot already, and it's going to happen on January 21st. Just after all the breaks and New Year's drinks, you can get a good start to the year by upgrading to Spring Boot 4. So then as a final couple things to share is we have also a new blog going in detail across all of the changes that we have for going to Spring Boot 4. So this is just setting apart some of the features you can expect here, and DaShaun is going to tell us about as well. But just to know what you can expect, both in terms of changes that the recipes will make and improvements that you'll get when you actually upgrade. And as a small thing, I want to call out just as something that we very much appreciate from our wider open source community, is that we had quite a few folks pitch in for the recipes that we now have for Spring Boot 4. So we had Isam reach out from Paris, France, who pretty much single-handedly built out a lot of recipes to help folks migrate to Spring Batch 6. So those recipes are going out into the release tomorrow, and we just want to say, very much thanks for contributing, and invite everyone else who might find that maybe their little corner of the Spring ecosystem isn't as covered yet as we'd hope it to be, that they can come to us, and we will help guide their efforts to write these recipes and make them available to everyone. So hope that gets folks to the project, and then from there we hope to see you all in our issues, in our pull requests, and see from there. So that's it in terms of updates that I have. And then we can bring on our special guest for the evening. So I hope all of you know DaShaun already, but DaShaun is, we have a small bio. He's a struggling triathlete. He's a Raspberry Pi enthusiast, stocking these ever larger sets of Raspberry Pis when available in the stores. He's also a test container champion. So helping folks better improve their test practices there. He's I just learned this just now, he's a former professional cheerleader as well, a keynote speaker, and of course a Spring developer advocate at Broadcom. So with that, thank you very much for joining us. Very good to see you.
This is cool for me, right? I'm a big fan of the show. Thanks for having me back on again. This is a fun place to be. It's a good time. Good times.
Welcome, DaShaun. Good to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
Excellent.
More than happy. I had a hard time sleeping. That's how excited I am. Things are just. It's been a big week, and there's just been a lot of exciting things happening. I couldn't sleep this morning. I woke up. I was like, "Am I like? Did I miss it?" I don't know if you know that feeling where it's like, "Oh, I must have missed." I slept through the podcast, and so I woke up early. And I've been looking forward to this.
I've definitely had a couple college finals where, woke up being like, oh, I missed it. And it was like 4 a.m.
That's exactly the feeling.
But don't worry, there isn't going to be very much of a test for you on this program. The consequences of failure will not cost you an entire summer, an entire extra semester worth of tuition. But speaking of quizzes, I'm a little behind on Spring Boot 4 and what's cool and new in it. Like Spring Boot 3 was pretty good. Couldn't I just use that for a while? Why do I got to upgrade to Spring Boot 4?
You don't have to. right? That's
Oh, that's
kind of
fair.
the thing. You don't have to. It's just
But why
the
should I
phrase that I say is, and I learned this when I was in Amsterdam. You're stealing from your own wallet.
Damn.
That's the thing that I've been tied to, and maybe it's just my scar tissue. You don't have to upgrade, right? There's teams. They wrote something 10 years ago, and it works, and it's doing its thing. The problem is, it still costs as much to run as it did back then. Right? Compute's more expensive. Things are, not cheap, right? And the market is crazy. But if I'm running Spring Boot 1.5 on Java 8, it just costs more to run. It's taking more memory, and it's not fast, right? There's been so many improvements, and we get it every 6 months from the Java team. Thank you, Java team. We get a new version every 6 months, and it's very well documented. Lots of enterprises, do a hot, search over on YouTube, and you'll hear lots of enterprises talking about how each one of these versions of Java, they get massive improvement, measurable improvements in
better
performance.
garbage collectors, cheaper to
right?
run. Yeah,
The
Reduce
double-digit
memory footprint.
improvements is what I'm hearing. So it's just really worthwhile upgrading.
Yeah, and if you don't want better, if you don't want cheaper to run, if you don't want better performance for you and your customers, you don't have to. It's just you're stealing from your own wallet. You're wasting money.
Yeah. All right. That sounds really good, and I do appreciate that answer. But like, the costs are for the bean counters. I'm a developer. What are the cool new features that like I get to play with?
Honestly, there's not a lot of cool features.
Really?
Just to put it out there, there's not a lot of really cool stuff. If you've been
And with that, thank you all for joining us today.
That's been our shortest edition of Code Remix Weekly. Catch us again next week.
There's a lot of cool like upgrades and stuff, but a lot of it didn't come from the Spring team, from the Spring framework. A lot of it is now you get access to these other things in some of the downstream dependencies that we pull in to Spring Boot. So the Jakarta EE 11, the Hibernate 7, I believe it is. Right? You're now getting access to those Jackson 3. You're now getting access to those, which that was a massive, which you guys probably know better than I do, right?
Yep.
There's these massive things. One of I think it was I'm quoting Phil Webb, the co-creator of Spring Boot. The biggest investment was made into the JSpecify and null safety. That's where the biggest amount of work in, because it went across the entire portfolio. That's where the biggest investment was made. But like, is that a cool new feature? Is it going to make the null pointer exceptions go away in production? Are you going to have a better understanding of your software? Yeah. And for those of us that have been around,
nullability and type systems, I'm happy to hear that. We use the JSpecify nullability annotations as well. So that's great news for me.
So yeah, but like hot new cool features, nothing like I don't have like I know what my favorite is. My favorite is the API versioning. My favorite is the API versioning. Yep. So for this release, it's the API versioning. And what does that mean? The thing that I've been saying for a long time, not a long time. This year, I realized like, oh man, Spring has been around for a very long time, and there's companies that didn't exist when Spring existed. Like Spring is older than some of these enterprises that, the big ones that are up at the top. Spring is older. And those same enterprises, they built on top of Spring. So Spring is legacy. Spring has been around for 25 years. But we have these customer journeys where, they did their startup thing, they did the JEE thing, and then they went over to Spring and they watched Spring, and now they're doing the same things using Spring Boot. They've made this journey. The big difference today is now that journey has been made a lot easier thanks to Open Rewrite. Like this path, 5 years ago, when I was first learning about Open Rewrite, just 5 years ago, the landscape, the amount of software that I was running in my house was very different than what it is today. And there are very few, if any, organizations that are running less software today than there were 5 years ago.
That's true.
And where we are right now with AI and the explosion of AI and what developers are all excited about, all the new features, all the cool things, what can I do with it? There's going to be way more software a year from now, right? But we can look past that. This journey that we're on, we're taking care of the stuff that's in production. This is the tidbit is like the most important thing in our ecosystem, in software, is its maintainability. That is my hands down. It doesn't matter if you want to go from a junior developer to a senior developer, you've got to stick around long enough to see the outcomes, to see what your decisions did, to maintain it. You can't be a senior until you've had to maintain something. That's where all the lessons come in. That's where this journey really takes on. It doesn't matter if you worked for 12 different companies, if you bounced from project to project. Honestly, I don't care. You've got to stick around long enough to see the outcomes, to see what happened with your decision.
I think that's absolutely true. When the all the good stuff in your algorithms and data structures textbooks won't necessarily, what it won't tell you is what are the consequences of the design choices you're making now. And the only thing that'll tell you that is experience. So I think you're really spot on with that, with pointing out that you have to stick around long enough to learn the consequences of your actions to really meaningfully get to senior and beyond. We have a question from the chat, which I think is an interesting one, where Jay Alters asks, if orgs aren't ready for Spring Boot 4, what's the minimum modern version they should target? And my answer to this is probably like, well, why aren't you ready? Like, what is the thing that is holding you back? Is it a bunch of code changes? Like, are you using features that were deprecated? Like, are you using libraries that don't work on Java 17? So I think there's a lot of context that to answer this appropriately. I mean, my kind of go-to answer is, well, if kind of putting all that aside, the latest Spring Boot 3.5 patch release, which is also what Anbu thinks here. I wonder if you have any additional additional thoughts on that, DaShaun.
Yes. So Spring team has a release cycle where the open source software only gets maintained for so long. So patches are only going to go to Maven Central for Spring Boot 3.4 for like 20 more days or 28 more days, whatever it is. But after that, you're not getting updates from the Spring team unless you're a commercial customer. So my recommendation to you is 3.5. For that reason, 3.5 is still being maintained. The going from 2 to 3, it felt like a big lift. It felt like a big lift for the entire world, for hundreds of thousands of companies. It felt like a big lift because we had to switch from Java 8 to Java 17. There's not a really big lift going from Spring Boot 3.5 to 4.0 unless I think my signal currently is you're using Jackson 2. You're using Jackson and you've got other third-party dependencies that are using Jackson, and you've got a little bit of a change there. That might be the biggest leap in making that upgrade harder. That's the only one that I can imagine right now. That's the only one that I've heard any feedback on.
And even then, it's like, even then, we don't want folks to see that as, well, I'm using that so I can't upgrade, because you can use 2 and 3 parallel for a while if needed. It's like don't see it as a big blocker, but just see it as something to at least be aware of when you upgrade. Yeah, and definitely, try to upgrade. There's no need not to try if you have recipes to help you there.
Now, the one really cool thing with this upgrade journey, like, hey, how do I get there, is the community has been pretty awesome. People are writing recipes. And I will say, a year ago, I would have said like most organizations have like 2 or 3, I'm going to call them migration engineers, that knew how to write recipes. And that's all they needed. I'm pointing at a company over here where, they have 20,000+ engineers, but they still only had 2 or 3 migration engineers that would, hey, you need a recipe? Yeah, you call Tim and he'll take care of you. But they had that. They had people in the different regions that could take care of it. And the thing that I've seen a lot, and I'm going to box it I'm going to say since summertime. What I've seen is the LLMs that we get to pull off the shelf. They've all been trained. They all know how to write recipes.
It's actually the subject of not next week, but an upcoming Code Remix Weekly or an upcoming training we have will be on using LLMs to write recipes. And as Tim mentioned in the intro, check out the Claude skill for recipe authoring that we put out.
Yeah, like where we're at right now, I see more and more people doing it because the upgrades, right? All the things that you're delivering inside of your company, most of the times it's not just Spring. Mm-hmm. Most companies have their own common util, right? Generic thing that they've built internally that's their thing. They've got something like that may or may not also have similar dependencies. It might also be built on top of Spring. So there's this massive, not just about Spring. What are the other things that need to upgrade? And maybe that's one of the things that's holding us back. We hear this all the time. Oh yeah, that team left. The author of that is gone, and here's all we have, and we don't know how to upgrade it.
Speaking of the libraries you use and how that impacts things, we've got a question from Brian Friedman about newer Spring projects like Spring AI or Modulith. He wants to know, how do using these influence the need to stay current? Are there expectations for these projects around a baseline Spring Boot version?
Yeah, Spring AI didn't exist before Spring Boot 3.3. So you had to be at least on Spring Boot 3.3. But now Spring AI 1.1, actually 1.1.1, I think is coming out tomorrow. Like, it's continuing to move forward. Spring Boot or Spring AI 2 is going to be, right around the corner. I think the first milestone release is coming up real soon. So yeah, there is. That's just another piece of the puzzle. Is if you want to do all the cool new things, we're not going to backport it to Spring Boot 2.
Yeah,
nobody's got time for that, and there's nobody in the community that wants that. So,
but the good thing is we're helping each other to automate that path onto those latest versions. And specifically Spring AI, we have a good friend of the show as well, like Thomas Vitala, who's writing recipes to upgrade folks to newer versions of Spring AI. It's just everyone pitches in their part, and together we make it easy to upgrade.
Everybody's pitching in, and that's I think the biggest thing. I've been in this role as a Spring developer advocate for coming up on 4 years. My anniversary is coming up later this month. And
congrats.
At the beginning, my pitch is like, hey, have you heard of Open Rewrite? Because I'm going to show you something really cool. And it was few, right? Back in 2021, 2022, some here and there. The cool kids, of course, right? They'd all heard of it. But going to a new audience, a new conference, whatever it is, it was, I've never heard of it. There's a lot of me introducing what is Open Rewrite, what is that?
Which we appreciate.
And now it's turned, like I can say like the 5% that had heard of it, the 95% that hadn't. Now I can say with goosebumps, I can say that it's 95%. Most of the time, the room has heard of Open Rewrite. Most of the time, they're using it. They found their way. They're doing it. They might be doing it in their IDE. They might be doing it manually still, but they're using it. And that has just been a massive. It feels like there's a momentum, a curve of adoption that is really starting to like tick up. For all the reasons. So it has been a really crazy journey, and nobody's really waiting. Nobody's saying, "Oh, we'll upgrade that later." The difference today, as a year from now or from a year ago, is a lot of our developers that we're talking to, they've got access to a Copilot or a Claude or something.
Yep.
And they're not afraid. It's like, write me a recipe to do this. And it'll work. They're still in this manual mode, and it'll work. It'll move their project forward. Now they get to use Spring AI 1.1. They get to use Spring Boot 4. They're moving forward, and they're in a good spot. They're not waiting. And the other thing is, I'm seeing now repositories of recipes. Whether it's in a team, we still haven't, there's a few, but mostly it's pockets of, oh, you're using our library, here's our recipes. Right? They've got, for their GitHub org, they've got their recipe repository. So to upgrade their common util that you're depending on, that they've never met you, they're giving out that recipe and they're helping those teams move forward.
And I, for one, very much applaud getting that information out of like the wiki where you go to hide information and into a recipe where you automate the steps instead. It's
Yeah, it's kind of like going from like a weekly typed type system where you have to put what all the return types and parameter types are in the comments, to a statically typed one where you actually put it in the code and something it's alive, right? It's something actually checks it, uses it, so it doesn't instantly fall out of date the second you're done filling out the wiki. Wikis are good too, though.
Yeah, wikis are good. Yeah, having a recipe is so much better.
yeah.
And we still have like the release notes. So if you're looking at Spring Boot 4, still go read the release notes. There's lots of good, valuable stuff there. And there's also a migration path. You don't have to be doing it with recipes. We've been doing this for a long time. We'll tell you, if you don't have recipes, here's the things you need to go do. Here's the things to go look at. And you get well-written instructions. And that's a great option. And that feedback, we've had people taking the milestone releases. This is just a shout out to the open source ecosystem. And I'm not going to say not enough people take out, and try out the milestone releases, but we've had people trying the milestone releases and giving us feedback and saying like, hey, here's what I did. Here's what this was like. And you can go and look at the repositories. Open source is a great place to be. Having a community behind a project is a great place to be. And not all communities are created the same. I'm a big fan of the Spring community. I'm a big fan of where Spring is headed. And yeah, it's great to be on the latest and greatest. We get this gift of a new release. I get excited. Sometimes I'm being a little selfish and I feel like, oh, the entire Spring team did this for me. They wanted to give me this better experience. And I'm not running a whole lot of things in production, but they still did this for me. And that's a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
API versioning. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah,
I went off on a tangent. That's my favorite thing. We've been delivering this software for a long time, and our communities, our enterprises, they're like, hey, how do we do this? The Spring team is now put back into the software. Here's an opinion. Here's some ways that you can now version your software, just like we've done. Trying to make it easy to upgrade. Right? It shouldn't just be breaking change.
And it's that other part of the maintainability where you're maintaining the APIs of your services and making sure that those can evolve independently as well. Not so much the upgrade automation that of course we bring with OpenRuid, but the contracts between your services can now more easily evolve all the same.
Yeah, that's another kind of part of this story is just because I released Spring Boot 4, I shouldn't have the expectation that everybody's going to now be on Spring Boot 4. So how do we do that? How do we give people a path? That's where you have this kind of support window. Mm-hmm. And just like you're going to do, right? For the API that you're delivering in your enterprise, you don't want to be supporting N-8 for your API. You want to encourage people to move forward. So you give them a little window. Hey, we'll support this one for this long. But there's a time, and every company's time frame is different. But giving a nice, safe path so that those teams that are downstream, that are consuming your services or your libraries or your frameworks, that they can move at their speed. Every company has good, better, and best.
For sure.
Every company has that team that's on stage that we all want to go and hear how they're doing it. But in that same company, there's another team that's not on stage. They're still on Java 8, but they're still doing great work and valuable work. They just haven't built those muscles yet. So we want to get those two, the good, better, and best. We want to get them closer together. But again, having this ability to still move forward, to still deliver a Spring Boot 4, but also be aware that not everybody's going to adopt it right away. Be aware that we still have people that we want to help, and we want to make it as painless as possible for them to migrate to the latest and greatest.
Yeah, and as that migration path gets easier, the support burdens get lower, right? If you're just having to support, fewer versions of your software, whether that's what the software you're putting out to your customers or internally that you're supporting to other teams within your organization, the the easier it is to get and stay on the latest and greatest, the just the smaller that support burden is. I mean, I know that even just like even with Open Rewrite, a bug comes in and it's like, oh, you're using a version from a few months ago. It's like, I don't remember. There's been 1,000 commits since then, man. I don't remember what the state of the software was, months ago.
Exactly. I'm gonna go let this dog out. It's just me. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure.
So while he does that, we could address this question. DaShaun just mentioned that his favorite feature was API versioning, although that came after pointing out that the new release of Spring Boot 4 isn't so much focused on new features as it is on infrastructure upgrades, right? Yeah. Hey, DaShaun, we got a question for the audience, redo of the favorite new feature. So I was just filling them in about the API versioning and also about the not stealing from your own wallet, of the lower operating costs and better performance, not just with Spring.
Well,
updated Java versions. Oh,
there you go.
Lost me for a second.
We lost you for a second, but we're back. That's Dan Vega. He's also a Spring developer advocate. And he's got a new book out, and it's awesome. You should check it out.
Yeah,
what's the name of the book?
What is the name of the book, Dan? It's
Dan, post the name of your book in chat, and
it is Fundamentals of Software Engineering, from Coder to Engineer. Him and Nate Shuda. That whole sticking around long enough to see the outcomes.
Yep.
That's that whole thread, that whole concept I got from Nate Shuda, the co-author of that book. So yeah, it's hot. That one's brand new. But yeah. It's a good spot to be. There's a lot of cool stuff with Spring Boot 4. Getting there is also beneficial. All the performance things. That's great.
And I think Java 25 support is unique to Spring Boot 4, right?
Nope. You got some of the Java 25 support in Spring Boot 3.5. Because that's the other thing that the Spring team is doing. They're working closely with the rest of the ecosystem. So I don't know if I want to call any of the dependencies out, but they work closely with some of the things that are included that we have support. They work closely with those teams, and they're like, "Hey, please, we're going to do a release here. We'd love to be able to have your new version in this release stream," because oftentimes developers are like, "Hey, can you get Spring Boot 2 to support that Kafka driver, the latest Kafka driver?" Well, that comes with Spring Boot 4. Like, hey, you do the work, you upgrade instead of us going backward. You do the upgrade, and then you can have access to it. It'll be guaranteed to work with all of the other things, in that dependency tree. That's one of the benefits. But the Spring team is also looking forward, working with all these other teams. They know where, and they work really close with the Java team, knowing where the language is going, where things are going. So a lot of times, the next release that's coming out, Java 26, a lot of times we'll have that support really close or ahead of time.
Another question coming in from Mr. Brian Friedman about specifics on some of those performance things. You got like the better garbage collectors in the newer versions of Java and such, but anything specific on the Spring side? Access, first of all, the virtual thread support that came in Spring Boot 3.2, I believe. And then with Spring Boot 3.3, we had AOT caching with Spring Boot 3. But now, what's AOT caching?
The ahead of time compilation. So we have like the Spring version where we're going to all of the reflection, all the beans that we're loading. What we could do is at build time, we can say, hey, I know what's going to implement that bean. Let me go ahead and fill it in. That's the only thing on the class path. Let me go ahead and do this ahead of time. Instead of taking that hit at runtime, we make that optimization happen at build time. So that's the AOT compilation that we've had since Spring Framework 6.
Is that a Java compiler setting that the Spring Boot plugin is invoking in your builds? Like how does that work?
There's two parts. So we have our own kind of phase of doing the AOT compilation for Spring, and that's built into the Spring plugin. We're going to do that at build time. So you can enable a flag and say, hey, I want to do the AOT compilation.
Gotcha.
But now it's kind of evolved. What was called AOT caching, we had this capability, or it was called class data sharing. This ability, hey, I'm loading a bunch of information. I could even do a training run, and I can see, hey, here's where my JVM is after I've loaded everything, after I've kind of given it some load. And I can take that information, the metadata, out of the JVM, and I can store it. And I can use that on the next app instance when it starts up. So instead of having to do all the work, I can just say, hey, here's my warmed up JVM. Here's the metadata. Here's the classes that are loaded. Here's the beans that are pre-populated. I already know what's going on. And then that next one gets to start up super fast. So that was called class data sharing, and now it's called AOT cache. I think that's the right term. We've been kind of evolving as that spec changes inside of the JVM. So that's another big feature with Spring Framework 6. So going back, Spring Framework 6, that was another big capability when we forced the baseline of Java 8 to Java 17. We did that so that we could do some other interesting things around native images, using GraalVM to do native images. So do the native image compilation, GraalVM, get rid of the JVM, and now I've got a native image statically linked for my specific operating system. I lose the trade-off of write once, run anywhere, but now I've got this thing that instead of being 500 megabytes to run, it's maybe 80 megabytes.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is a perfect fit for a Raspberry Pi cluster that you might be building. So
and for me and my Raspberry Pis, right, a 500 megabyte Java Spring Boot app didn't really leave room for the operating system on something that only has 512 megabytes of RAM. But when I can do a native image on these Raspberry Pis, a native image, I can fit 5, 6, but I can also scale them to 0.
Yeah.
Right? When those things, they start up in 20, 30, 40 milliseconds, that's totally doable on a $35 computer. Like, I'll take it. Let me load 100 apps on this $35 computer, let them scale to 0, and when I want that service, I'll wait 30 milliseconds for it to respond. That's doable.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we had this, and GraalVM was doing a lot of really cool things. You pay the cost at build time for that optimization. You lose some of the other dynamic capabilities, dynamic class loading features, but there's a trade-off. Some workloads that's a great idea, some not so great. But for this startup time, for this getting our JVM to that peak performance time, the Java team has made a bunch of improvements. The Spring team has piled on a bunch of improvements so that your Spring Boot apps now get to optimal state faster. That soak time, you get there faster. You start up faster, so you can scale and do these other types of workloads.
Yeah,
perfect.
And as Dan Vega points out in the chat, your application code also gets to take advantage of the new Java language features, scoped threads or scope values, structured concurrency, virtual threads, all that good stuff. So that, when I'm talking about back when I was like, well, as a programmer who's excited for new features, well, those are a bunch of new features that I get to use in my application code as well. Even if they're not Spring Boot 4 features, they are enabled in Spring Boot projects by upgrading to Spring Boot 4.
The other hot question is, do we have to upgrade it? Does Spring Boot 4 bring a new baseline JVM? Do we have to upgrade to Java 21 or Java 25? The answer is no. You do not have to upgrade in order to take advantage of Spring Boot 4. But the recommendation, I'm pretty sure it's in bold at the top of every document, we recommend you go to Java 25 because of all the performance benefits. There's no features that are unlocked. Everything's still going to work, right? Outside of any the JVM flags or the virtual threads things, you can still do all of the things in the framework at Java 17. But why? Why would you stay on Java 17? You're stealing from your own wallet.
So we got a question from Anbu, who has tried out the Spring Boot upgrade to Spring Boot 4 using the Open Rewrite Community Edition recipe. He says that the XML is staying with Spring Boot 3.5, although some of the other code changes are made. And so I've pulled up the recipe definition here for the Spring Boot 4 upgrade, which lives in Open Rewrite Spring. And just taking a look at this here, I see we have several steps for like upgrading like the Spring Boot Maven plugin and the Spring Boot Starter parent and the Spring Framework Boot plugin. So I guess I just wonder, and obviously upgrading a dependency version from Spring Framework to 4. So if none of these steps are cutting it for you, Anbu, then I'm wondering, what does your palm look like? Like, what is the upgrade you are expecting to see from this recipe that isn't covered by any one of these like 5 attempts to do that exact thing? Is it maybe that you have a parent palm of your own organization that that has the Spring Boot upgrade in it, and you might need to take this recipe and add like an upgrade parent palm for com.my company kind of thing in there? Like maybe you need to customize this recipe a little bit. If it isn't the case that you have some internal organization specific wrapper around this, maybe come share your parent palm with us in the Open Rewrite community Slack or Discord channels, and we could take a look at that.
Wait, there's a Discord?
Yeah. It's a little bit less active than the Slack, but it you know, same kind of function. People have questions about Open Rewrite.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Sometimes folks like multicast, so they'll send it to Slack and Discord and email and maybe tweet at me as well. And please use one. And
I'm sorry,
Slack.
it's me. That was me. Many times. I want to tell this story because this has kind of been part of the journey. Like there's, I think at least 2 times where I was sitting with somebody like Anbu and I'm like, oh, we're running into this problem and there's not a recipe for this or the recipe needs to get upgraded. And the next day, Tim puts out a tweet or the repository gets updated and the rest, like we weren't talking, I didn't see you, but somehow you were in my head and you delivered the recipe that we needed over here on the other side of the world. And that's been really, really fun. You know, there's a long time.
On that topic, so the issue that Anbu reported, those recipes weren't there 2 weeks ago. So they were added and they were gonna be in the release tomorrow. So we're keep expanding the coverage of these recipes, and of course this small bit was missed. And starting tomorrow, you'll start to see those changes.
I'm going to be honest.
Speaking of recipe coverage, Tyler is wondering about recipes to move to the new modular Spring Boot starters, which obviously my first answer is, well, go ahead and contribute them, Tyler. I know you know how to write recipes.
Yes, thanks, Tyler. I don't remember what it was, but Tyler's on another stream, and he's like, yo, here's how you do it. Like, he's telling me how to write that. After seeing an episode, or maybe it was in office hours, he sent a message. He's like, yeah, here's what you need to do. And I'm like, again, and Tyler, I immediately turned around and like, oh, yeah, there it is. So, yeah, what a great community. Thanks, Tyler.
And of course, for the wider context, for the folks not aware, the Spring team changed the starters to make them more modular, such that you can now don't have one big Spring Boot starter unless you want to do the Spring Boot Starter Classic. But this way you can have like more modular, pick a technology, get the starter for that one, and get the test technology for that one as well. And then just have those in. And
so the easy path, right? If you don't want to do a lot of work, you're just trying to get the Spring Boot forward, the easy path is to use that classic. And that'll pull in, and it's grown. So in 2014, it was 185 kilobyte jar. And in 2025, it's a 2 megabyte jar. So this is all the properties for all the projects, all the auto configuration. And the problem is it's hard to figure out what to do. So where this modularization really helps the community is for the teams that are doing their own starters. Hey, we've got our common framework, our common platform, and they want to deliver a starter to all the Spring Boot projects so that when you land on the platform, you've connected all the dots, you've done all the things. But if you've got a bunch of properties in there and you don't know how, like, hey, because this thing was on the class path, Spring MVC or Spring Webflux, hey, what if they're both on the class path? What if I've got MVC and I've got this web client? Like, what am I trying to do here? Making those decisions was a little bit difficult, not just for the Spring team, but also for the community that's writing their own auto configuration. And now that we've got this more modular approach, if I'm writing my own starter, I can look and I say, oh, it's only this that's on the class path. I get less things on the class path. So my signal for what I really am trying to do based on what's on the class path, my signal is much cleaner. So for all the people that are writing starters and doing auto configuration for their Spring Boot workloads, this is a really big deal.
And there's fewer surprises as well. Like I've heard some comments on like a meetup in the past couple of weeks from folks surprised that some dependency was transitively pulling in some driver, and of course then the starters they do that what they're made to do.
Yeah, I saw this driver.
But then, yeah, and then but yeah, now having them more modular, you can actively opt in and lessen the amount of configuration on your class path, make it just a lot more predictable and smaller as well.
Contribute to the smaller deploy sizes that make it easy to deploy to a Raspberry Pi. Even I'm curious what you're using all these Raspberry Pis for, DaShaun. Are you like making your own Internet of Things devices for your house? You've got like an auto watering system for your plants. You run a little quadricopters around your house.
It changes. I'll tell you some of the things that I've done. So Kubernetes, I just run. It's a nice way of like, hey, let me get some workloads out. I'm a big fan of Spring Boot, production ready, enterprise grade. You get it out, and I can show that hey, it works in this small footprint. But yeah, over my career, there are Raspberry Pis that are running inside of operations, inside of enterprises, in their warehouses, on their supply chains. They're out there, and I spent a little time at Redis, and Redis is really popular in this small space. The speed, even on a $35 computer, and then you combine that with Spring. It's really exciting. But the projects that I've done, automation, things like I set up a Raspberry Pi, and I put a little camera on it, and that Raspberry Pi, and it was in this room. It was up in that corner. It's going to take a picture of the room 3 times a day. And back in 2020, you tried to do this, and it had to be Python, and you had to pull in a whole bunch of stuff. And you had to train this model on like, hey, what does this room look like? Is the room clean or not? That's what I was trying to do, right? A friend said, hey, I do this. And they put it over their kitchen sink. And if there's dishes in the sink, that you can imagine that's a little bit easier to decide. It's either I can see all gray or not. And they had a cabinet over their sink. Cool. But for a kid's room, that's not so easy. There's a sock on the floor. Is it clean? Right? Yeah. So training a model was difficult. And then in 2022, 2023, we got this Spring AI. And with Spring AI, and I could pull a thing off the shelf, I can put a camera over here and I can say, take a picture. And then I can say, hey, is the room in this picture clean or not? And I can use AI and I can use Spring AI, and it can all run on a Raspberry Pi, and it can all be inside my house. I'm not sending it out to the world. I'm not sending the pictures out to OpenAI. I'm running Gemma or what's the llama with vision? Lava, right? Like I can do these, and they can run on a Raspberry Pi. It takes 30 seconds to do the processing, but it's here. So that's an example of something that I would run. And there in America, there's this concept of like the guy with the hot rod, right? He's got it sits in his garage. He cleans it with a diaper. But it's always got the hood is up. He's always doing this kind of stuff. That's what this looks like. It's always in the garage with the hood up. I'm always trying to make it better. But on the weekends, these Raspberry Pis, I get them out and I make them go boom. Like I get them going, doing interesting things.
That's great. That sounds really fun. Tim, you ever mess with embedded programming? Could program on microcontrollers? Any of that?
We had at my previous company, we had a yearly competition where it was like a Raspberry Pi coding challenge, where someone who won last year on the challenge would create a new challenge for the coming year. And we had things like multiplayer Pac-Man, where you get 3 hours of a hackathon to build your own small automation of running your Pac-Man through a maze and trying to outcompete the others. And we would plug them all into the same outlet, and we would flip a switch. A server would come alive, and your challenge would have to try to be smarter than all your other colleagues in the same company. And if you won, you'd get like a trophy and the burden of organizing next year. It was a lot of fun. So trying to do the most you can with the limited compute that you have on a Raspberry Pi and still beat your colleagues while at it. So a lot of fun.
That sounds really fun. The last time I did embedded programming was, like 14 years ago or something like that. So I was a Microsoft intern on the USB team, and was trying to create USB devices that would violate the protocol, like the USB protocol, in various ways for testing purposes, right? Because whatever a badly behaved device does, it shouldn't be able to crash your operating system or even the whole USB stack. But that device, man, I would have loved to have Java or Spring Boot or something on that, because it had like the worst C compiler ever for it, right? Like if your program was a little too long, it would just like start overwriting the beginning of the compiled code, like with new stuff, which leads to insane like behavior, particularly when your only debug output is like a single LED. It was a lot of like debugging it of like, it's just saying like, why isn't this doing anything, until you just start reverting the changes you made until you got to some known state again. So yeah, maybe I should try it out with the Raspberry Pi or something else that could run Java. That experience made me be like, I like having a garbage collector. I like having a high level language. I don't really want to do more of that. But the embedded programming you guys are talking about, that sounds fun.
Yeah. So right now I have a stack of Raspberry Pis that are running my OpenRewrite pipelines. So I do little stuff. But I wanted to, with that in mind, in this kind of thread, and that we're talking about Spring Boot 4, one of the things, we had Envoy on and we talked about the wrapper around the palm. I run into that a lot. Surprising amount. Like, hey, this is a great way to do it. And one of the things that I've kind of approached from a different angle is using Spring Shell, another project. I think it's got a release candidate out today, using Spring Shell to write these CLIs that I can deliver to teams. I can say, hey, use Open Rewrite. I can write a recipe that'll change my my project that's delivered with a wrapper to something that's delivered with a Spring Boot parent, but still give it all the same dependencies. I've been on this little like journey through the recipes that are available, and I found a lot of really powerful ones, like finding the dependencies that aren't being used. Like, get rid of the things that aren't being used. Like, that's great. And I've been encouraging people to build into a Spring Shell these recipes for these types of things, not only to give to their developers, but also to put into their pipelines. So this has been a nice, fun thing that we're doing, and I want to get your feedback on it. Are you seeing that? Do you have teams? The Java Grunt or the DaShaun CLI that does, it makes things ready for my Raspberry Pis. I give it to you. It's going to format your Palm the way it needs to. It's going to make sure you have my common util in it, and it's going to do all the things. But all you need is that CLI. And inside of that CLI, I'm delivering OpenRewrite recipes. Have you seen that pattern? Am I on the right track? Because I'm having fun with it.
It's sounding very similar to what we have with Modern CLI. So with the Modern CLI, of course, is also a tool to run Open Rewrite recipes, and that we ship out to customers and open source users to be able to run recipes across projects as well. So that's might be interesting to compare approaches and then see from there.
And
we're seeing good results with that.
Yeah, it's I don't know what started it or why we've seen this kind of move back to CLI, but even for like the AI space, we have these the codexes and the cloud codes, these CLIs where that experience, it allows you to play wherever, right? You don't have to be tied to a certain ecosystem. It gives you a lot more flexibility, and that seems to be powerful. And in my case, it makes it so I can say, do all these things. Right? Here's the stuff. Do all these things, and I can put it into my developer's hands, and I can do it into the CLI or into the pipelines as well. So it's been a fun journey. It's been a fun journey, and it is similar. But there's a lot of power there, and with Spring Boot 4 coming out, that's only like part of the release train, right? Spring Framework comes first. We have our Spring Data, Spring Security pieces, and then Spring Boot kind of brings all that together. But then we got a new release of Spring Cloud. Spring Cloud comes after Spring Boot. The Spring Modulith, the how to deliver well-architected code, that comes later. But yeah, you have these kind of other projects. Spring AI is kind of at the end of that. But Spring Shell is in there too. And this whole process, it's a continuous cycle where we got to keep on moving forward. It's a good place.
Right on. That feels like a pretty good note to start ending our program on. Although we do have one more question from Dan Vega asking about how you'd rate that experience versus the JDK's virtual threads from a maintenance perspective. And I'm not sure exactly which part of the conversation this comment came in at, so we might have to rewind just a little bit to when we were talking about that.
I think it was around the Project Loom and all the things that were coming with Project Loom.
Scope value, structured congruency, those things.
It's another step. And I don't know if Dan's still around to answer, but it's every one of these little bumps that we get from the Java team, from the Spring team. We get to take advantage of these things. We just get to reap the rewards. And as a developer, for you, asking the question, like, it shouldn't matter what the experience is. Like, do the upgrade, record it, like, keep track of, like, hey, because at the end of the year, you can say we cut or improved our performance by 5%. The security team, they can't take credit for that. But you just moving things forward, you get credit for that. You can say the apps in my portfolio are now performing 5% better. They're using 10% less memory. We're saving.
That's just good career advice right there. Always, take credit for the improvements you make.
And you don't have to toot your own horn, but at the end of the year,
toot it a little bit.
Yeah, at the end of the year, at review time, you should have a record of all the improvements that you made, because you had typically four opportunities to do that a year. Every year of the Java releases, we get 2 a year, and every time we get a new Spring Boot release, we get those twice a year. So you have these opportunities. You should be able to move the meter. Yeah. At least even a single digit percent.
Upgrade, it's a freebie. Upgrade to Spring Boot 4. There's your positive review for next year. You can claim all these benefits.
Yep. Nobody else can take credit for it.
No. I've even in jest told like junior developers, like, this is open rewrite. Don't tell your colleagues. Go run it and take the credit. It's like
right. Like this, make friends. Like, wouldn't it be great if everybody had a friend like Tim? Right. There's people that have made their careers by finding
friend to have.
Friends like Tim. Absolutely. I know I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for Tim.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a junior developer at one of our first customers. As soon as we were like showing them open rewrite, he took like the common static analysis recipe, which just made makes like little code cleanup changes, and he just like mass committed it to like, I don't remember how, it was like thousands of repositories. And some like director came in the room and was like who's this Leo guy? Like who just made 5,000 commits to all of our repositories? Got him on the map, right? He had a huge impact right there.
Yep, and it worked. That's the thing.
It worked.
It worked. Right. I've made my career out of making career limiting decisions. That sounds like something I would have done. But in my career, I didn't have open rewrite. I didn't always have that. I might not have always validated that it worked before pulling a stunt like that. So, but here we are. Congratulations, Leo. Yeah. Make that move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, any maybe final remarks or questions before we wrap this up, Tim?
Not really. Just that's always good to see you, and I really appreciate your advocacy for helping get folks onto the latest Spring versions, Java versions, with help of our open rewrite. So always good. A pleasure to have you. So.
Thanks so much for coming on, DaShaun. It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. The pleasure's all over here. Thank you guys for all the hard work I love your show. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. All right. Well, until the next time, maybe we'll have you back for Spring Boot 5.
I'll be here.
Look forward to it. Right,
Perfect.
Till next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. See you.